Warning: this podcast may contain spoilers as well as coarse language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Our Anime Podcast. And this week, we are going to be talking about the movie that's been sweeping all across the globe, Koe no Katachi, or The Shape of Voice, or known by its westernized title, A Silent Voice. Now, before we get into it, I just want to give you guys a brief rundown of this film. It was produced by Kyoto Animation, based on a very, very popular and critically acclaimed manga with the same title. It was helmed and directed by Yamada Naoko of Kyoto Animation, who also directed K-On!, Tamako Market, Hibike Euphonium, Tamako Love Story, and with that in mind, this movie was definitely very different from her previous works in terms of tone and in terms of, I guess, depth maybe to a certain point. I don't know. Sha, let's start off with you. Oh, by the way, before we get into it, let's introduce the awesome people who are going to be on this podcast. So first up, we have Shocking 807.
Baka.
We have Mozilla.
Can you hear my silent voice?
Hey, I can see the shape of your voice. And we have Kavrik, our lovable Russian.
I have no smart line prepared, sorry.
That's more than good enough for us. So Sha, before we got into the introductions, I wanted to ask, what did you feel about this film, especially having seen all of Yamada Naoko's previous works?
I do have to say, I think it's funny that Yamado gets introduced before all of us. I would expect nothing less. That's a good fate move. But yeah, so I, like, the only thing I had heard of this movie before actually seeing it was, it was kind of like, not like compared, but like mentioned alongside Your Name, because they were both like the two big movies coming out in 2016. And of course, I had talked to you about it before Fate, so I knew you were shilling it, so I went in with very low expectations. I was like, this movie might suck. I don't have any expectations for this. And then I actually went to go watch the movie, and I saw, I was doing like mod things, and I thought I got like majorly spoiled on something. So I was like, are you kidding me? I got like spoiled on this movie 5 seconds before I was going to go see it. Good thing it was not a spoiler. And so I started watching this movie, and I was really blown away with how great it was. It was, I thought it had like a really great start. Like, it really hooked you immediately, and then like it really kept the intensity going, which is weird to say because it's not necessarily an intense movie, but I think it did a great job. And it's, I mean, before going like way too into it, I was just really blown away with how well it handled its subject matter, how well it handled its characters. It really kind of felt like it handled everything perfectly without going too overboard in different instances. And I'm still amazed that it's like a 2-hour movie. I felt like it was like went by in like blink of an eye. So I was pretty amazed with it and really blown away. So I guess good job, Shilling. You did good on that one.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes or something. It's the second longest theatrical movie in anime after, right behind the disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, if I remember.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. The Yamato Space Battleship Yamato movie back in like the 80s is technically longer, but only if you include the director's cut that went on DVD or VHS, whatever they were using back then.
Oh, interesting.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, I was shilling it for good reason, I guess. I really loved this, and I don't know. You'll hear my thoughts later. But Mo, how about you? What did you feel about this?
Yeah, so I'm someone who just ignores hype pretty much entirely. So I see Kyoto Animation doing a popular manga and it's getting really highly rated. I'm like, all right, whatever, it doesn't matter. But then I watched it, and I agree with Sha. Like, I was hooked immediately. Actually, like, within the first few seconds, I was just in love with the movie. I love the main character. And I do kind of disagree that it's not an intense movie. I actually think it was very intense. Not specifically because it's like violence and blood and high-stakes drama. Just because it doesn't really let up on the drama. It's just constant drama, basically.
Yeah, from the start, I mean, the opening scene is him getting ready to kill himself by jumping off the bridge. Yeah, talk about a cold open. That was kind of nuts. But
Yeah, that
it's definitely-
spoiler that spoiler that someone said was like, I don't care if he kills himself, I'm gonna like I hate this movie. So I was like what do you mean he kills himself? I was like dude, no, bands, fuck off. But
but then he tries to kill himself in the first 2 minutes.
so then he tries to kill himself. And I do agree. I think it's definitely emotionally intense. I agree with that. And I didn't see that coming at all. Like, did not think he'd open up with like trying to shinay himself off a bridge, but
Yeah, no, that's a topic that, I mean, like, Keion, Tamako, Hibike, they're all very, like, there are some points of, like, intensity and, like, seriousness, but they've never, like, dealt with anything remotely close to this.
yeah, Kyoto Animation doesn't normally seem to deal with like not like serious subject matters, but not necessarily dark subject matters. Like, have they ever had someone else in any of their shows try to like kill themselves?
Kyoka no Kanata, maybe?
I was thinking like that one was like where they're kind of like there's some violence in it, but it never felt like dark violence.
Clannad? That's just dark drama, though.
Yeah, no one's like I don't think anyone is like I don't think
You don't
there's
see
like
anything like this.
self-hatred. Yeah, I don't think there's self-hatred on the level of like 5 seconds in, let's kill ourselves.
Yeah, that opening scene was crazy, too, because, like, the way... Because it's very different in the manga. In the manga, it's all very drawn out. Obviously, they have much more space, but with the movie, like, it just starts off, and, like, you see him selling his stuff, you see him taking money out of the bank, you see him, like, with the calendar ripped off, and you're like, oh, shit, like,
And you all
without
know,
him
like
saying
we know.
Like
We know what he's doing.
That honestly, like, this might sound kind of morbid, but I just, like, instantly fell in love with the main character based off of that montage. Like, I immediately knew exactly what was going on. Like, he kind of, he like, completes all of his objectives. He's fulfilled some sort of purpose, and, you know, because he's trying to make up for something, I assume. I mean, he's not killing himself because he's bored or anything, obviously. Just right away, I'm like, oh, man. Yeah, this has actually become one of my favorites, honestly.
Oh, yeah, same for me. It's
Same.
surpassed... I had high expectations of it, and somehow it surpassed even those. But how about you, Cav? How'd you feel going into this, and how'd you feel coming out?
Yeah, actually, because it's one of the highest rated movies of all time nowadays, and it's like ranked number 4 on MAL. I was kind of cautious, and I'm not a big fan of Kyoto Animation, and I didn't believe they could handle the drama before, because I wasn't a big fan of Hibiki Euphonium and how it handles serious matter. But I was very glad that the movie shattered all my these grim expectations, and I enjoyed it very much. As you have said, just the very first minutes were amazing, and how it was presented, and how it everything was portrayed, how Shouya was trying to end his life, and it was very interesting, because I didn't know anything about movie before coming into it. Only about there was some kind of deaf girl, and it's a drama, and that's all about it. And I thought the story would go with a lazy way and make the most out of sense of pity for Shouko, and I was very pleasantly surprised that instead it was focusing on Shouya, the main character, and his deafness, and how he approached Shouko and his own drama.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. Yeah. So yeah, it's actually one of my favorite movies as well. Up here with Disappearance of Haruki Suzume.
Yeah, for me it was... I guess I'm coming from a unique perspective because I'm the only one on this panel who read the manga, and I fell in love with the manga when I first read it. Then I heard it was getting an anime adaptation. Then I heard it was getting an adapted by Kyoto Animation. And then I heard it was getting directed by my favorite director in any medium. So the expectations were so high for me. When I went to Kyoto last summer, like they had posters of Koe no Katachi and the real life Tamako's market. They were giving out like flyers for the movie coming out in like September, I think 17th it was. And I was just so excited. So it was weird for me to like thinking I know everything about these characters, right? Going in, I have reread this 4 or 5 times. It's like 7 volumes. It's a very easy read. Time-wise,
Easy read.
It's very
okay.
it's very dark and very heavy at times. And I for some parts of it, I wish I had gone into it as blind as possible. Because throughout the movie, I was like, oh, are they going to do this scene? Are they going to do this scene? Like, even if I didn't want to, like, I was constantly thinking, like, trying to stay one step ahead. But at a certain point, like, the movie as itself stood so strongly. And there's one scene there when, surprise, Yamada Naoko puts the 2 characters on a train in an anime original scene. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to sit back and let this movie tell me and show me about these characters. And for that, I really loved it. It was absolutely fantastic. Currently, right now, it sits number 1 on my Mal favorites. I don't know if that's going to last.
How did that happen? So
yeah,
weird
I know.
how it got there. Where to Mal to like put it there?
It's just my initial impression of it is that I want to rewatch it. If that makes like it was so good that like
That's why I rewatched it.
Oh right, Mo, tell us about that.
Yeah, I watched it the first time. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time and finished it. I'm like, wow, that was amazing. And I instantly gave it a 9. And then when that happens, I kind of second guess it because I usually don't feel this strongly about anything. And it's currently number 6 on my favorites of all time. So immediately, since it's just 2 hours, I wanted to rewatch it. So I rewatched it a day after, not only to reconfirm my hype, but also to kind of answer some questions that I had. But I'll get to that later on. But yeah, I watched it the second time, and yeah, it's like it actually made me like the movie more, if anything, because now it's like some scenes I understand a lot better.
No, I
makes
think
me hyped because I want to rewatch it.
Yeah, I think that was and I think that's what kind of differentiates it to some extent to a comparison you made earlier, Shaw, to Your Name. I think while Your Name I think was a fantastic film and I very much enjoyed it, very much loved it. I watched it at the movie theater and then I rewatched it on like a plane. And when I rewatched it, it wasn't like I gotta rewatch this. I was like, let's sit back and enjoy the story again. Like it's a very kind of surface level kind of story. It's very beautifully executed, of course, Your Name. But I think the difference between that and Koe no Katachi for me was that Koe no Katachi was just so much more ambitious. And even the director of Your Name, Makoto Shinkai, has come out and said that Yamada Naoko does things in her movies that he could never even dream of pulling off. And I think that was very much apparent. I don't know if that's just me. What do you guys think? Cav? Or no?
Well,
Mo?
I haven't seen Your Name.
The one guy you could have called.
I had one job. How about you, Mo?
Yeah, I agree that Your Name and Koe no Katachi are definitely way, way different. I consider Makoto Shinkai much more of a visionary than like a storyteller. I mean, his Your Name is actually the only one of the 3 movies that I've seen that I actually really enjoyed, and that's probably just because it just tells a better story than the others. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely way better looking than this movie, Koe no yeah, but Koe no Katachi...
Definitely better than looking than Koe no Katachi. This better be something really impressive.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be that guy, and I actually liked how Koe no Katachi looked more than Your Name. Maybe it's just the aesthetic or the art style, or I don't know. Maybe it was the Yamada magic. I like when I watched Your Name, I think I was like real. Of course, it was like beautiful and like, like really great looking movie. But I never really sat there and said wow, as like I did with some of his other movies, like especially in Garden of Words, otherwise known of like Garden of like Wallpapers. But but there were some moments in Kono Katachi, like especially during the scene. Spoilers if you didn't notice, huge spoilers when she was like about to jump, like that scene in that movie. Like the way they executed that was like, even though it's like a really sad situation, like that was one of the most like beautiful things I've seen, and I don't think I had that reaction with like Your Name.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like, despite what I said, that one scene was my favorite scene of the entire year.
God, it was
just phenomenal.
The music, like constant building, like the shock Shouya has, like he just like stands there with the camera and says, then like he starts to run, and he doesn't like make a perfect dash to the door, right? Like he bumps into the table and he's like knocked down to the ground. He's yelling at her and she can't hear him, and like all the while the fireworks are going off. It was just so beautiful.
It's just everything in that scene was perfect.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. It was like a nice contrast too between like, we're saying like it's a really beautiful scene, but it's also like a very not beautiful situation. Like she's about to like kill herself and jump off her building, but like the way it looks is like so gorgeous. Like you really got that like heart-stopping moment. Like everything up until now was like, for this moment, this is the moment of truth kind of thing. So they did a great job with that. I don't know if I'll see anything as beautiful as that ever.
What I really liked about that scene is what happens immediately after. Like, it has the curtains fluttering, like, you see her, the curtains go over her, you don't see her anymore. And then it, like, hard cuts to him, like, barely being able to grab her. And at that point, like, the very beautiful cinematographic, I don't know these words, like, stops. And it's very realistic. You just see, like, the weight of this human being, like as he's trying to bring her up with like his sweat drenched hands. And I think the contrast there made it so much better. So like you had this like, this sounds weird, right? Like it kind of almost like romanticized this situation and then put like a huge grim reality of like what could have happened and what is going on right now. Cause like it made the suicide, like the attempt, into a very grand thing, which I think, like, for movie purposes, I think that's what they were trying to do, because it's such a huge point in the movie. But then, like, he grabs her, and then it stops being that thing. I will also say, to Shaw's point, I thought Garden of Words was also, like, more visually impressive than Your Name, except for the one scene, not really, but where there's, like, a flashback scene, and, like, in this really, like, kind of pastel watercolor type way, like you see like events that have happened through time, and like,
oh yeah,
like how like one thing merges into the next. That was like absolutely fantastic. But besides that, I think the biggest difference for me was when I saw Your Name, I was like, oh, that was a really good anime. When I finished Koe no Katachi, I was like, I wish I had seen this in a movie theater. Like it felt like a film.
Yeah. Figures we don't get that one in the US release.
Yeah. It was, oh my gosh. I wish I could have seen that in theaters, like in a, because it just felt like a movie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to throw dirt on Kimi no Nawa, because I love that movie.
Oh yeah.
But I am a little disappointed that, shut up. I'm a little disappointed that this movie came out at the same time as this, because I have no doubt in my mind that Funimation would have pushed for a theatrical release of this if it weren't for Your Name.
If only they could do both.
I also don't know if Kyoto Animation would have done a Western release. I mean, I guess they did do it in the UK for a while, but they haven't really pushed for much in the US. Like, Tamako Love Story just got a US license. Shouka just got a US license. Nichijou was like in licensing hell for like 5 years. And they didn't show the disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya in theaters here either. Although, like, of course, that was, what, like 5-6 years ago already now? So it was a very different time. 7? Jeez, I'm getting old. 7 years already now, and things have looked like the landscape of showing anime and movies in the West has very much differed, but Yeah, my gosh. Like, I wish I could just like find someone with a home theater and just be like, we have to play this movie. But yeah, I guess let's talk more. Let's just talk freely about this movie then, like things we loved and like the scenes and like just generally like how great Saori Hayami's role as Shouko was, because that was absolutely phenomenal.
There is one question I want to ask you all. Well, you have mentioned the scene where the grim reality strikes, where Shouko tries to jump off from the balcony. Did you expect her to end herself now that way and that time? Because for many people it came out as a shock.
I mean, I didn't expect it, but I was afraid. I was going to be really... I thought if she actually did kill herself at that point, I was going to be really disappointed in the movie. I felt like that would have been kind of a betrayal of what it was working up to me. So when it was happening, I'm like, oh my god, don't do this. No.
Yeah, I definitely felt like I was reacting in real time with it. Like, I didn't see it coming. It did make sense in, like, retrospect, but, like, at the time, I didn't see it coming, and then when it was happening, I was just, like, kind of holding my breath the whole time. So I would say if the movie was, like, trying to shock me into that situation, it definitely did a good job. But it was also, like, a weird mix of emotions because I was, like, overcome with how, like, amazing the scene was, but also how, like, emotionally conflicted I was with everything going on. So, I think what the movie was trying to achieve, like, emotionally for, like, you know, sadness over, like, what was going on and, like, awe at how beautiful it worked, like, if that's what they were going for, they did a good job with me.
For me, of course, like, I'm coming from a manga perspective. When I read the manga, I was not as shocked, I feel, because while the manga is brilliant, I feel like the author also, like, brushed in very broad strokes and being like, look how depressed Shouko also is. Like, all these things. And, like, you could see really the guilt she feels. So I was looking for that in the movie to see how they would lead up to it. And I think, first of all, they did a brilliant job of showing, not telling. So one thing I really love, and we could get into this more later, is how they didn't put subtitles for any of their sign language. And there's one scene, and like it's hard to describe it over voice, where in her little sister's flashback, it shows Yuzuru's vision of a young Shouko, like putting her two fists, like one on top of the other, and putting it under her chin. And that's sign language for "I want to kill myself." And so that's there in like I want to say like around the 45-minute hour mark, and like you see that, and like I guess if you on a rewatch when you see that, you see like, oh, like that's the first step when we know that Shouko has this depression. And I think that's another reason why it's so good on a rewatch, because then you see like all the pictures that Yuzuru was taking to try and discourage Shouko from killing herself.
Yeah, that's one thing I picked up on the rewatch. Like there was that montage of the times there was another time where she actually tried to kill herself, and it made the suicide for the fireworks scene that it made a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the sign was that when they butted with each other, Shouka and Shouya, as usual, Shouya just showed the sign of see ya again, and Shouka just nodded silently and went off. I just felt something is going to be wrong in the next few minutes.
Yeah, I thought the anime original scene where they go on a train and they go to that, I guess, kind of like a modern art museum or a park, and you have Shouya Ishida falling down that slope, like he trips and he slides down, and immediately Shouko like comes down and she like apologizes, and he's like, "Why are you apologizing?" And then she signs, and we don't know what he means. And then like on the train ride home, like he says, she said, "I'm sorry because your life would be so much better if I wasn't in it. I am such a burden to you." So, which was really heavy because I don't know, just like with Shouko, I think I was really worried, especially if they were cutting things from the manga, that she would come off as like a one-dimensional character. Like her only trait being the deaf girl who's kind of cute who wants to commit suicide. But from my perspective, I feel like they really fleshed her out. What do you think, Shaw?
I think that's also, I agree. I think they gave her like more multifaceted aspects to her character, and I appreciate, but I wanted to like transition that into somehow, you were saying like you were afraid she was like a flat character who was kind of only defined by, I guess, like her tragic aspects. It's interesting because that's kind of how, what's her name? Yusuru or something?
Yuzuru, yeah.
Yuzuru, yeah.
Yuzuru. That's how she, like, thinks she is. I think it's interesting to see that, like, a character in the show is kind of, like, views her as that kind of just sympathetic damsel in distress person who kind of, like, takes all the attention and kind of takes it all, like, gracefully. And I thought it was interesting to see that kind of, like, some of the complaints that viewers could have had were actually, like, in the film is almost like a meta commentary on her character.
Yeah, especially the things Ueno says to her, like in the Ferris wheel, when they have that fight. She's just like, "Oh, like you should have done this. You should have just don't like you weren't just you had like some faults of your own. You did this. You did this wrong. Like you didn't understand the burden you put on us."
Yeah.
So here's a question: did Ueno do anything wrong?
She definitely did.
She did.
She did a shit ton of things wrong.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because, like, I like how they showed her, like, it's not like she was just, like, that person who was, like, immediately a bully. She wasn't, like, immediately and overtly a bully back when they were in elementary school. Like, she tried to be friends with her. She was, like, nicer. And you can see, like, they have the scene of she's reading aloud and messes up and her teacher gives, like, reprimands her. And then,
Shouka?
Shouka goes and does a terrible job and then, like, just kind of gets brushed over. And then you can kind of see, like, how it builds up where, like, she really does feel like a burden to these kids who aren't really getting a break helping her out. Like, there's no real reason for her to be her friend and stick it out with her when it's kind of, like, detrimental to her. So, and I think it's interesting later on when she's kind of honest about it is, like, I just, like, straight up don't like you. Like, I don't like who you are. I don't want to hang out with you. And I think it's a nice honesty that she has with herself, but it's also kind of, like, just because you're honest about how much of an asshole you are doesn't make you not an asshole.
Things we should have told certain voters in the United States. Just because you're an honest asshole doesn't make you a good person. But yeah, I thought Ueno was... I just really appreciated the fact, well, first you see, like, when Shouko tries to sing in the choir competition, and, like, when I was like, oh, there goes the choir competition. That's a thing elementary school kids would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that both Shouka and Ueno were wrong in their relationship, and it came out as a problem of communication, of course. It is. And Shouka tried her best to be friends with everyone, while it is evidently easy to know that it is impossible to be friends with anyone. And of course there would be people who are not interested in you. And Ueno was not interested in Shouka for many reasons. And the problem is that Shouka couldn't read that message from Ueno, who couldn't say it outright at that time, and still tried to approach her, only giving even less of an impression for Ueno. It was kind of unfortunate, but it happened, and that also led to led her into even deeper pit of bullying, I guess.
Yeah, like the one person who did try to be her friend, Sahara, was bullied to not being able to go to school anymore.
Yeah.
The one girl who was like, oh, yeah, I'll learn sign language with you. And so people were like, oh, what a brown nose, what a suck up.
I also liked how the movie portrayed the bullying in general. Like, I heard it's even more severe in the manga. But I believe the movie also showed it very well. Like it was very on point. It was hard to watch. Like it was a difficult watch in general, the movie for me, because I was emotionally invested and all that. And the first 20 minutes of the movie were hard because, well, Shouka did not deserve all the bullying, of course, and the way how Shouya behaved himself was really painful. And as someone who also did some kind of terrible things in the past, it brought back some terrible memories from my school years.
Can I honestly say that I actually kind of enjoyed that first 20 minutes just because I knew he was going to kill himself afterwards.
Oh, right. Oh, God. Like,
It's
yeah, this guy had
he's
it
gonna
coming.
die.
I loved how they set it up, though, because, like, you set it up with, like, The Who as the opening with Our Generation, which is a great song. And, like, I don't know how they got the rights to play that as the OP.
That came out of nowhere.
That was perfect.
And, like, it shows him, and, like, he's having fun with his buddies. He's, like, the king of the school. He's, like, doing, like, rubber band guns to, like, papers. And, like,
That's how you know you're king of the school. Rubber band guns.
And, like, I think what they were trying to get at is, like, Ueno really liked him as a kid. And I think that's kind of obvious throughout the movie. And once Shouko starts to get his attention, she starts to feel this jealousy.
It was also kind of interesting because from the other end, he could kind of see how Shouka was like kind of bothering Uena. So like I think he also was trying to like bully her to like impress her and get her attention and kind of like in a weird way cheer her up. So I think it kind of went both ways where it was like when Uena at the end of the movie said like our lives would have been better without her. Like, you can kind of see from their perspective how that's true. Like, if things just went according to plan, they'd still be friends. They might be dating at this point. Like, who knows?
Right.
I did not think of that, but that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And I think when we talk about bullying, we also have to talk about how, like, the teacher was a participant in all of this.
Yeah, when that guy like when that guy started yelling, I'm just like, dude, fuck off! You're at fault too.
Yeah, you saw all this happen, and then you were like, let's throw this kid under the bus.
Yeah, that was, like, super uncalled for. And it was also apparent, like, how little help she got as a student. Like, to the point where she needs to copy other notes and stuff. Like, he wasn't helpful. He sucked. And he knew that they were making fun of her with, like, their reading and shit.
Japanese schools just don't give a fuck.
Yeah, because he also, like, you know, instead of, like, facing her and letting her read his lips, like, would constantly turn her back to her and start writing on the blackboard while explaining things. And, like, it shows her, like, with this look of shock and surprise as she looks around, like, trying to figure out what he's saying because she can't read his lips. And then when the other teacher comes in, it's like, hey, like, every homeroom, like, we could take, like, 3 minutes to learn, like, a couple words in sign language. And then he's like, do we really need to adjust our lives for this one girl?
Yeah, I just want to know that I'm a teacher and I teach
kids
at school.
Okay.
Whoa, game changer.
And I could say that ignorance is the worst kind of thing for teaching in general. And my worst nightmare is to have a student with any kind of deviance as Shouka had, because it just puts entire class into disarray, because it just divides everything and becomes the center of attention.
And it's so unfortunate, right? But I think that's what made this so real. I think in a lot of anime and a lot of movies, like, they kind of glorify disability. Like, oh, like, look at this kid who can't walk, but look how, like, much of an inspirational figure they are. Or, like, you see, like, people on the Make-A-Wish Foundation, they're like, he's such a fighter and such an inspiration. And, like, you see Shouko, and, like, everyone hates her for being deaf. So, I also think Saori Hayama's, like, she brought so much to that role. When, in that scene, after, of course, like, Shouya has gone now the attention of all the bullies, and now he has no friends. She's, you see Shouko start to, like, wipe his desk. And it's reminiscent of the time, like, he's like, oh, someone, like, wrote this like really mean thing on the chalkboard. Let me like erase it for you. And she honestly thought he was erasing it. So like she's trying to pay it forward by erasing the mean thing said on his desk. And then they start fighting. And like he's like, say something. And she's just like, I'm trying my best. I am trying to do. And that just broke my heart. How old do you think they were? Like 9, 10-year-old kid, just like so depressed and so angry at the world.
I think they said 9.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was also surprised by how Shouka tried herself to behave back in the junior school, because I cannot imagine how hard it would be to live in such cruel world, in such hostile world where it's impossible to break through the silence. And I was really surprised by how many times she tried to approach kids and Shouya in particular, and it just how much courage she had to try her best again and again and again.
Yeah, it was just heartbreaking. But like just seeing her like do all this, and then like you find out she even then wanted to kill herself.
I thought she would try to kill herself even before that scene with her fireworks. Maybe she did. Maybe she tried, actually.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Right.
But she did try once before.
Mm-hmm. Or she at least said she wanted to.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
remember
But they
that
had that one. Oh yeah, you go.
Yeah, you remember that one shot where it was just like a second where it showed up, but there was a shot where she was lying on the ground and there was blood around her.
Oh, true.
So I think it's assumed that she jumped off a building.
Gosh, dang. This movie was just so real and just so painful to watch, and then seeing how Shouya's life crumbled around him after that, and like how it followed him, and like him saying like he went to high school and like the people would be like, oh, don't hang around him, he's like a real terrible person.
Can we just all? I think we can all agree that Shimada is literally Hitler.
Is it?
Shimada and Kawaii.
Is it? Oh yeah,
Yep.
Kawaii. Oh yeah,
Kawaii sucks too.
Oh my gosh,
Kawaii is not Kawaii.
she is the most fake human being. But the thing is, like, we all know people like that who's so fake.
I think it's interesting too, though, like how it's not immediately apparent how fake she is, because you can kind of see. I can kind of see her point. You know, she was like not really like she wasn't throwing hearing aids out the window. She wasn't like immediately like she wasn't the instigator, but she was also laughing along and like contributing to the group. And I think that's like also equally as responsible. But you can kind of see how like no one wants to be attached to that. So you can see her saying, "Oh, I didn't do anything wrong. I was just kind of there." Like I can understand that perspective, even though it's like really scummy and I hate her and she sucks. But I can understand even where she's coming from with that.
But remember when like the teacher throws Ishida under the bus?
Yeah.
And he's like, Ueno, didn't like he's do some terrible things? And she's like, yeah, I guess. And then like Shimada starts like bawling and being like, we tried to stop him, but he kept bullying her. It was so sad to see. And like she's crying, like stomping him.
Oh yeah, that was bad. Don't cry. That was a weak look.
It was.
She tried to bring attention to herself because she was such an attention seeker in general.
How did you guys feel about the side characters in general? Because one of the criticisms I've heard is because this movie was so condensed, not all side characters felt fully fleshed out. What's your guys' takes on that?
What about you, though? Because as a source reader, you should try to take it yourself on it.
Okay, yeah, I'll talk about it. So, it felt very weird because all these characters have such more in-depth character arcs. And I guess this is kind of a manga spoiler, though it doesn't really matter. There's an arc in the manga that didn't make the cut here. So you know, like, the short dude who's, like, Shouya's best friend, no matter what, Tomohiro. And he's like an aspiring film director, and what he wants to do is, like, create a film after, like, the whole suicide attempt. and it's like a silent black and white film, blah blah blah, student film, like gets
Kinda
nominated
cringe.
for things. It's a little cringe, and then it gets like blown up by like the critics who see it. But like what it does is like it follows like them. So it follows the group of, I guess, friends. They're not really friends. Like group of kids. They go to Shouya and Shoko's old middle school to try and film a scene there, and you see the return of the teacher, and you see like. So the one guy who like barely has any lines, but is like the good-looking guy, Mashiba, with the giant eyebrows, talks about like how he was really bullied by having really big eyebrows, which is supposed to come off as kind of ridiculous because like he's not deaf, like comparatively.
Yeah. He's not deaf.
He's not even deaf.
So while I thought there were like things that they could have expanded on more, there was especially a scene where I wanted to see. So it kind of follows them during the days where Shouya is unconscious in a coma, and it kind of follows all of them around. And you see Kawaii like go to class and be like, "Hey guys, let's all make 1,000 paper cranes so that he can like have a wish fulfilled." And you see everyone talking and whispering behind her back and be like, "Who does this bitch think she is? Like she is so fake. She was the one like making fun of him and like throwing him under the bus. Like she just wants this for attention and like pity." And with Sahara, the tall, lanky girl who was Shoko's friend back in elementary school, like you see like the hurt she's had to do, and like how she now, like when she was bullied for not having like the right clothes or the right fashion stuff, like she took that as a drive to be like a top fashion person in high school and like becoming a model and making her own clothes and like going to school for fashion stuff. But while all that was fleshed out in the manga, I feel like, especially now that I'm like explaining it, it doesn't really matter in terms of the movie, because the movie is really about Shouko and Shouya.
Yeah.
I didn't have any problems with the side characters. I thought they were really good, actually, considering. Like, I have a lot to say on them, even though they weren't, the main focus, as you said. I think it's also, like, I think when it comes to movies, there's always gonna be that, like, well, the characters don't get enough time. Because, like, it's 2 hours. Like, you can't do the same things you would in a 1 or 2 core series. Like, they're not gonna have enough time to shine. But considering the 2 hours we did get with them, I think they were all really great. I think it was a really great cast, and you can really feel how genuine they were, and I think they all represented something really well.
Yeah, I think actually Shoya's mom was even better in the movie than she was in the manga.
Best mom ever.
God.
Yeah, she's a real G.
The scene where, like, she has her earring ripped out of her by Shoko's mom, and, like, the blood's dripping down onto her shirt. And
yeah, I didn't really get that. I was like, oh, did the other mom rip it out? Did she rip it out as, like, a sorry?
Yeah, I thought she just, pulled a knife on her or something. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, I knew it was something. I knew that it was to make up for her son's actions as kind of, like, eye for an eye kind of thing. But I wasn't sure, like, what was the course of actions, who was ripping out earrings. But that does kind of make sense when you see how the other mom is just kind of like a psycho, like attacking, not a psycho, but I mean, like, she's understandably angsty considering, her daughter's getting bullied and, like, she's just, like, attacking people outside hospitals because they suck, but...
Oh my gosh. Yeah, can we talk about the 2 moms real quick then? And then, I guess, to the other side characters, if that's cool with you?
Yep, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, just...
Yeah, the moms are cool, I guess. They're interesting. And Shai's mom, she's just a nice mom in general. Very careful about her son, and I don't know much to say about her. Shoko's mom is more interesting case because she's so overprotective of Shouko. Well, for a reason, as you have said, because she's with a disability and she's getting bullied. Of course, she's going to protect her no matter what. And in the second half, where Shouya was in coma, we saw her kneeling before Shouya's mom as an apology. which also shows she is a woman of dignity and proper conduct, because it takes pride to do such a thing. I believe it was a very interesting scene and showed entire Nishimiya family very well.
For me, I was like sobbing throughout that scene. I think we see a bit of her like softer side first when we see her crying at her mom, Shoko's grandmother's funeral. Like she's like crying in the back, and then when she like goes down on her knees and like completely submits herself, like in Asian culture, that is saying like you have no rights, you are nothing before this person. And like this was a very proud woman who like did all this stuff. It was stuck up for her daughter all the time, and for her to just be like, so completely lower herself in front of the other mom, I thought was just crazy. And then the way like, and you were saying, Shaw, like she's fighting Ueno, a teenager outside the hospital. Like this woman takes no prisoners.
Yeah, I did nothing wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I would also fight Yuena outside a hospital. Like, she did nothing wrong in there. I just think that's like a ride or died bitch move right there.
Ueno chucked Shoko into the chain link fence. That was freaking insane.
Yeah. And I think it's also, even everything in that scene, like, I guess that might be, we could consider that the most dramatic scene, per se. Like, the most, like, intense, like, you know, people fighting outside a hospital, like, and, even then, like, you know, I could see everyone's perspective really clearly. Like, even Yuena, like, you know, I can understand her frustration. And she was the only person to visit him in the hospital every day, which I think is very commendable. Like, it's easy to brush that over because of her other actions, but, you know, she is a loyal person to the people she cares about. And you can see how she was, like, you know, upset that he almost died at her expense, you know?
Yeah. Also, like, her yelling at the mom, like, don't have kids if you can't take care of them.
Like, honestly, when you said that, I just thought of a, like, World Star video. Like, immediately.
That's actually an unfair thing to say to her, because I just read the thing on My Anime List, and it says that she got divorced while she was pregnant, so that kind of sucks.
Yeah, so what happens in the manga is there's a flashback scene. It shows like Shoko like banging away at a xylophone, and like it's Shoko's mom and her dad like at a table with her dad's family behind him and her grandmother, her mom's mom, behind her mother. And the dad and the dad's family is like, yeah, you know, it's kind of your fault that Shoko is deaf. Like, you know how they say, like, if you have sins, like, it gets passed on to your kids. Like, I can't believe you wouldn't tell us about all the problems in your past. And she's like, no, I did nothing wrong. Like, this stuff just happens. And they're like, well, it's clearly your fault that you have such a broken child. And so we're going to be leaving. Goodbye. And they walk out. And then the grandma's like, don't worry, I'll raise her with you. And then mom's like, oh shit, I think I'm pregnant. And she was pregnant with Yuzuru when the father walked out.
Yeah, but Uena was in no position to criticize Choco's mom. Anyway.
Yeah, she doesn't have a kid. How does she know?
Yeah.
But she says the things.
While we're here, I want to know that I was kind of scared that Shouya would not wake up from his coma, or probably wake up but also with some kind of disability.
Ooh.
Oh,
I thought he was going to be crippled at the end.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Same.
In fact, honestly, I'm actually like I actually just kind of got a little mad at the end when he just got up and then started running after Shouya. After Shouya.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's bullshit, dude. You can't do
Yeah,
that.
that was my least favorite scene of the movie because it felt so like anime and so dramatic, overly dramatic, unlike any other scene in the movie.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
when he like
it kinda
runs out
sucks.
and he just happens to meet her on the bridge.
Yeah, well, meeting on the bridge is kind of makes sense because they all the time met here, and it's kind of their place. But at the same time, how dramatic it was, like he was running despite his condition and stuff. Yeah.
I don't know. I also just, for me, I was just so overwhelmed by the scene right before it where Shoko is like asleep, and it shows everything from the perspective of her growing up and like how she wanted her childhood to be, like swinging arms with like some of the girls, and then like when Shouya behind her like yells in her ear, she's like, "Mo, like please just stop," just like in a very fun childish voice, but in perfect articulated voice, like that. But then it like cuts to, and after a beautiful soundtrack, like this movie sounded gorgeous, it cuts to silence when you see Shouko in like the very beginning where Shouko goes to the hallway and they talk to her, and the only things we see are like the words on the screen. There's no sound, no dialogue in terms of spoken dialogue. And you just see everything from her perspective of how he's like, "Oh, I was gonna die. I'm about to leave you. Tuesday's almost over. It was good seeing you." And then she wakes up. So that I thought was really a really good scene. And so I guess it kind of bled over, like my positive feelings kind of bled over into him waking up.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think we were speaking of the man of the hour. We've talked about everyone at some point. What about Shouya? Like, he's an amazing main character.
He's one of my favorite.
Shouya made it into my favorite characters list on Mal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He's amazing. Like, he's the reason why I love this movie so much. Because I like these troubled main characters. And, yeah. As someone who has experienced bullying, remorse, and heavy, lasting guilt complex, as well as constant suicidal thoughts, his character hit kinda close to home, I guess. I would also compare him to Higai Hachiman from Oregairu, because he's also depressed, and both stories focused on showing the depression and how to cope with it, actually. But if Oregairu takes more kind of anime route with harem and stuff, while still good, it isn't that believable. Koe no Katachi, I believe, takes more intimate and genuine route in that case, and shows shows depression even further, where Shouya tried to kill himself, and it really hit close to home, and it was very well portrayed and presented, and just how multi-layered his character was, how he was progressing from a bully to a deeply depressed character who tried to kill himself, then how he tried to cope with his guilt, because, as we all know, he tried to approach Shouko for the first time out of the sense of the guilt, and just before he would kill himself, and then how he would try to open up to the world once again. It was all brilliant.
Yeah, he's also in my favorite characters as well. I mean, I have a lot of respect for him, because he realizes that he not only realizes the mistake that he's made, but he tries working so hard just to do anything to correct it, just to make up for it. And then even further, once he realizes that he's kind of done everything he could, he just ends his life, or tries to end his life at that point.
Yeah, it was interesting that it was Shouko who stopped him from ending his life, because he wasn't planning on saying that he wants to be friends with her. It was out of whim, basically.
Yeah.
For me, Shouya, he was just so... I felt for him so much more in the film, and I think that's partly because his voice actor was so fantastic. And Shaw, you can expand upon this more. One of my favorite scenes is when everyone's on the bridge, and like he is so broken. Like and I think an anime move would have been for him to like start yelling at the top of his lungs, but instead he like crawls up in the fetal position and tells everyone to leave.
Yeah, I love that scene because it was an interesting, like, super realistic take on, like, he's like telling everyone off, but he's kind of just like whispering it to himself. Like, his head is down, he's not facing anyone, he's sitting, and, you know, they're kind of giving him shit, and he's just like, you know, like, he says, like, to Kawhi, like, you just care about yourself. You don't care about anyone else. Like, he says it in such a tired way, and I feel that it made it somehow more authentic because it was really just kind of like him getting the repressed opinions he's had probably since elementary school off his chest. Like, it's almost like a confession in a way, like, this is how I really think of you, and I can't really deal with this anymore. And I really appreciated that because you don't have to have a breakdown just by, like, yelling at everyone.
Yeah, and for me, I loved the scene, and like we've talked about this scene so many times, the balcony scene where Shouka like is trying to jump off and he grabs her and like he starts begging to God and he's like,
Yeah.
please give me he doesn't say like please get us both out alive. He's like, please give me a little more strength, and I promise you, like, starting from tomorrow, I will look people in the eye. I won't look at people on the ground. I won't, like, cover my ears. I'll start listening to people's voices. Just give me anything to do this little thing. And then, like, as he pulls her up, he's like, oh, did I ever apologize? Like, that's what's going through his mind as he's trying to save this person's life.
Yeah.
Did I apologize to her for the things I did? Like, he's tried to do all these stuff, but was it enough?
Well, this was that kind of moment. It's not average brilliance, I guess, but it showed that it was Shouya who was really deaf in this story, and it was not only about Shouka being deaf, because Shouya also shut himself from the world and did not hear anyone. Like, we could see all the crosses on other people's faces, right?
Mm-hmm.
That showed us that he isn't really interested in talking to anyone, that he is just living his own world. And him hearing, finally realizing the world at the end of the movie was the main journey, the main destination. And I was kind of glad that the movie was not focusing on, the story was not focusing on Shouka, only her deafness, but as well as Shouya.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that last scene had me bawling, which is weird. I was just like, at first I was like, this feels so weird. Like, why is this so emotional? Like, this is just, it felt like it should be corny, but it was just handled so well. I was just like sobbing openly. Just, this guy, like, like when he lifts his ear up and like the music goes way up and he hears everyone's voices and all the crosses come down and like he's crying as like he's finally open to the world again.
Yeah.
Yeah, when the X's fade away, that was a cool. That's like my second favorite scene after the jumping scene. Those were both like amazing moments that were really like breathtaking.
What about confession scene?
Oh gosh,
in the middle of the movie?
I wanted to talk about this. I was on the same wavelength. I love the confession scene. In fact, I was telling people, like, as long as this movie has the Saki and Suki like confusion scene in it, then like I will love this movie. If that's the only thing that they properly adapt, I will love this movie. So I just loved how but I also loved how it showed Shouko trying to be someone who she isn't and thinking that would help her in her confession, like with the ponytail, and instead of signing, trying to talk to him.
Yeah. I believe people underestimate this scene, and I've seen fair share of criticisms that it's just here for trying to portray Shouka as a cute character. But in my opinion, it's a catharsis for her character because it showed how much courage she had just to try to confess her feelings in a way that she cannot do. And I cannot imagine how embarrassing it was for Shouko that Shouya did not understand her. It was kind of bad, but at the same time, I believe Shouya confused it for Tsuki as moon, right? And Tsuki is beautiful, and the moon is beautiful is the same as I love you, I believe, in Japanese.
Yes. Satsuki Natsume was the one who said, if you are with a woman and you say, the moon is beautiful, isn't it? That is the same as saying, I love you. And then that is exactly word for word what Shouya says. He's like, oh yeah, the moon is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, I love this scene as well.
I think the only real, like, criticism I've heard that is, like, for the movie that isn't even really, like, a big one is that, it was kind of presented as a romance, like, maybe in, like, the marketing or, the general presentation without seeing it. And, I don't disagree with that, but I don't agree with that either. Like, I can see that perspective because of maybe iffy marketing, but I do like how they have, like, a confession scene that to me was meant to further illustrate, you know, the lack of, like, clear communication between the two, like, showing that gap between them and how it's not easy to communicate. It's not really easy to get their feelings across. And I'm glad that they didn't try to maybe shoehorn in romance between the two, even though you could tell, like, those feelings were there.
We like to talk shit about my anime list genres, but here romance was not one of them, actually. Not in the manga, not in the movie.
So they showed up.
Just because there is a boy and a girl, it doesn't mean it's romance.
That's a good point.
I also quickly want to say that I think if anything, this shows how warped Shoko's view of herself was and how much she hated herself, in the way that the only way she could tell someone she loved them was by not being herself. And like Shouya's like, no, what are you doing? Like, you're speaking weird. Like, use your hands, use sign language.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's like, oh, am I speaking weirdly? Am I speaking funny? Like, it shows like the flaws and like the pain they had him sign them. Like, still in that point. What about you, Mo? What do you think about that scene?
Oh, about the confession? I don't know. Nothing that anyone else hasn't said yet.
All right.
Jeez, I just love this movie so much. It was, and I'm sure there are people who didn't like it. I've heard from a couple of manga people who were kind of miffed that the film arc wasn't in there, though. Like, I think I've explained it well enough where most people can imagine why it's not there. Yamada Naoko and like the author worked very hand in hand as well, trying to figure out how to adapt this. And I think it shows, because like this was very well put together, very beautifully well done.
I mean, I'll admit that it's not a perfect movie. I gave it a 9. But my problems with it are mainly just that it didn't really like develop the side characters too much. That for me, the scene on the bridge where everyone kind of breaks off, that was the one part of the movie where I was like, because particularly because I didn't really know these characters that well, and I also felt like the way that everyone was just kind of breaking off and arguing it kind of felt like the movie was like going against itself. Like everyone was trying to be like a better person. They were trying to be different from who they were in the past. So the fact that they were just kind of arguing over what I thought was kind of petty bullshit, I'm like, I thought they were above that.
I don't know. Shao, what criticisms did you have? Since I guess I can have some, but I'll save mine towards the end. Shao?
I don't really have any. That's really weird. I definitely have to rewatch the movie, but I gave it a 9 too, but I think that was just I was just kind of feeling it out, and it felt like a 9. I could definitely see it being a 10 on rewatch, maybe, but I don't really have any criticism for it. It's weird to think about. Maybe if, like, I'm reaching, and this will probably be cleared up on a rewatch, maybe it's just sometimes the characters' motivations could be a little convoluted. Not much, but, like, sometimes you just don't really know where they're coming from. And I think they clear it up by the end, but I think sometimes it could just be kind of, like, reaching a bit to try and be, like, I don't even know what I'm saying. Like, sometimes they could have been clearer and they weren't, maybe. But, other than that, I don't think it really, like, did anything wrong. I can't think of one moment where I was like, I want them to change this, and then it would have been better.
Mm-hmm. So just like Ueno, it did nothing wrong, right, Mo?
Yeah, Ueno did nothing. One other thing I want to say real quick is that this, I don't personally consider this a flaw, but some others might. But the movie does move at a pretty brisk pace. It just kind of jumps from drama to dramatic scene over and over again. So some of the details of it were kind of lost on me personally, and that's particularly why I rewatched it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, I also want to rewatch it because I feel like those details definitely were there on an initial viewing, but I just didn't pick up on them. So
Like
I don't
I'll
know.
say
How about you,
again-
Kev? Oh, Mo, sorry.
Yeah, just one last thing. Like I mentioned the one shot of Shouka with like blood around her head. Like I was wondering what that was about, and I thought it was just like a dream Yuzuru had. But then later on, when I rewatched it, I'm like, oh.
Oh.
Kev, how about you?
I enjoy the movie so much that I want to see the positive flaws of the movie in general, just because it was so goddamn amazing. But I can say that some side characters, weren't as good as I would hope so. But once again, in 2-hour movie, what can you do? And that reunion scene was too sweet, and it kinda not ruined the mood really, but left kind of an aftertaste after it that I didn't really enjoy. That's why it's a 9 for me and not 10, I guess.
Very nice.
But
So
I've seen various criticism, like ranging from shit characters to who is this Afro dad randomly appearing in Ishida's family.
oh yeah, the random dude.
Yeah.
Oh, his sister's.
That was
I
Maria's
guess.
mom or his dad.
Yeah.
Maria's
Yeah,
dad.
Maria's dad. Yeah.
But people were, who is this guy? Why is he here? I don't know.
To be fair, that's exactly his role in the manga too. He just like
Yeah.
shows. He's like,
Yes.
he's just like. There's one scene where he's like, "Yo," and like he's doing like the weightlifting thing. That's literally like basically his only appearance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just say that it's really hilarious how he showed up for like 5 seconds and he's the 6th most favorited character of the movie.
He's pretty great. For me, it's like it's hard for me to find criticisms. I guess I am like the most biased person you could find on this earth about this movie. I don't know. I just think it was like the material was perfect for the director. Like after watching like Tamako Love Story and Hibiki Euphonium, just like when I watched especially Tamako Love Story, I was like, I wish I could see like a feature movie for her, like a 2-hour movie, and just like all the effects and all like the filters and all like the way she cuts her films, and especially Hibiki Euphonium looked like a movie in a TV form. So it was just great seeing that come to life. I thought it was kind of funny because I've given talks and I've written like essays on how well Yamada Naoko displays emotion through like people's legs. And then like I kind of laughed when he was like, I only see people's legs, I can't see their faces. I was like,
Oh my god.
how
that's
perfect.
just-
So what a self-insert, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, what a Kirito. 2 out of 10 now.
It's funny because there was that Ferris wheel scene where you only saw Ueno's legs.
This is true. She was probably like, oh, finally, I get to do this. Yeah. I don't know. It's just boggles my mind how good it was. Like, when I first watched it, when, like, small moments, like when Ishida gets onto the bridge in the very first, like, 5-10 minutes, and he imagines himself, like, jumping off, and then there's fireworks that, like, bring him out of this daydream, and he's like, oh, I'm not gonna kill myself. Like, and then you have the fireworks later as Shouko does it. Just like the way the movie constantly tied itself together. I don't know. And then of course like Saori's performance, like how do you like? First of all, she did the when superhuman battles become commonplace, battle rant in one take, and then she has like a brilliant performance like this way, like this. This is like the Academy Award winning performance like everyone talks about. Like, you know how like people are like, oh, look at Christian Bale. Like he basically starved himself to like play this role. Like that was Saori Hayami for this. Like she really got into the mindset of a deaf person. And that scene where she's like clawing at Ishida's mom's feet and like crying and saying like, I'm so sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, was just so heartbreaking.
Yeah, I think it's great that no one actually knew that she was voicing her. Everyone's like, who's this new deaf VA that they got for this role? And they're like, oh, wait a minute. It's Sayori Hayama. So, they got her, and she's like a really like well-known voice actress, so I think that's an amazing job on her part.
Yeah, she killed it. She was Snow White or Shirayuki in Shirayuki Hime. She was
Yukino.
She was Yukino. She's just been like so many amazing characters over the years. She was also the sax class president in Hibiki Euphonium. She was like, she had a couple of Kyoto Animation credits before this. Oh, sorry, were you gonna say something, Mo?
I'm just saying, not really, but she's the main character of Fukumenke Noise this season, and that show was dog shit. So it's good to see that she's in something that's actually good right now.
Nice to see her come back already from that.
Oh man, you can't. I mean, she's in so many roles. Holy crap! Like I'm on her. Oh, she's also Ononoki in Monogatari.
Yeah, she is.
Yay! Peace, peace.
Peace. So, I don't know. I just love this film, and I could talk about it for hours more, but we don't have that kind of time. We don't have a 2-hour, 15-minute runtime. So, I don't know. Any final points from you guys?
My one last thing that I don't know if we got to say, but I just really liked how, like, my favorite thing amongst all the pretty, almost suicide scenes, all of the, like, gorgeous, like, visuals, all of that, I really like how the movie kind of had a really authentic message about, like, with bullying and causing, like, others pain, like, you can't really go back in time and fix that, but you can kind of try to create new memories to like, replace those. I thought that was cool, to kind of see them say, like, you know, he can't really go back and make up for bullying and causing her pain and, like, contributing to her depression, but, like, he can be her friend now, and I think that's a really authentic message that I really appreciated.
It's interesting for me because I'm actually, I can't, I don't know, I just have trouble, like, I don't know, like, justifying some things that I've done or some things that other people have done for me in the past. Like, if I was in this position, I'm not sure what would happen, if it would, like, be okay if we just started doing stuff together. I don't know.
It's kind of like you have to forgive yourself, too. Like, that's a huge part of the story, is, like, you know, you kind of want their forgiveness, but you kind of have to come to terms with the fact that, like, you have done some things that might not be forgivable and have had, like, long-term detrimental effects on others, but you kind of have to move on from that anyway and just accept that as your past and, you know, really do, like, forgive yourself.
I also liked how, like... Oh, sorry, Mo.
I'll just say again, I really love Shouya. He's a person that I honestly cannot be.
Yeah. I just was just gonna say, like, I agree with both you and Shaw's points that, like, you have to forgive yourself. Like, it's so hard to forgive yourself at times. But I think not only is that true for Shouya, but also for Shouko. Because I felt like she ruined so many people's lives as well. Like, she had that burden, and she was trying to find forgiveness from them as well. Cav, anything to add?
Just want to once again point out how good movie was at portraying such a hard topic, how delicate it was, and that everything worked out in that case.
Yeah, I'm very happy it existed. Very unhappy that we didn't get a theatrical release of it. And looking forward to...
You know, don't let your dreams be memes. Like, just make your own movie theater.
Oh, yeah.
Don't wait for someone else to do it for you. You need to be proactive. That's another message
my
of
own
this movie.
theater with blackjack and hookers.
The hero we all need.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in for this podcast. We hope you enjoyed the shape of our voices. If you like this, please subscribe. I think we're on iTunes. We're definitely on YouTube. We have an RSS feed on the R Anime thread this is going up on. And until next time, I was trying to do like the see you later sign that they do in the movie, but again, this is over the internet, so just pretend you could see me doing it.
I'm still doing the baka sign.
Baka.
Baka.
I know a little bit of ASL, so like fun fact to end this on. First thing she does is like the B sound and the K sound. So it was really fun like seeing that, like, oh, I know that it's the letter B and K, but in like their sign language, I guess it's also like the B sound and the K sound. So fun fact, yeah. do it up. Learn American Sign Language or any sign language. It's pretty
Can't
cool.
call people baka in American Sign Language.
Not with that attitude.
There's
All right,
no rule
Bakas.
against it.
All right, Bakas. See you later.
Do-do-do.
Adios.
See ya.